A U.S. Navy destroyer is a floating fortress built for sensors, weapons, and speed, but behind the radars and steel, it also has one job that never stops. Feed the crew, day after day, in every sea state for a deployment that can run 6 to 9 months. You are trying to keep more than 300 sailors fed, hydrated, and functional. That means roughly 1,200 meals a day moving through one ship, on schedule, without getting anyone sick, without running out, and without wasting precious space. How is that even possible? Let's find out. The first surprise is that shipboard food is not mainly about cooking. It is about logistics. On a destroyer, the supply officers start building the feeding operation months before the ship ever leaves. They work with a calculated budget, described in our sources as between $300 and $400 per sailor daily for meals. And they have to balance cost efficiency with nutrition, variety, and storage limits. They also have a lot of autonomy in what they order, which matters because every crew develops its own preferences, and a menu that feels familiar can keep morale steady when everything else feels like work. The procurement process begins long before the horizon turns empty. Supply officers coordinate with approved U.S. distributors to stage provisions, and every order has to assume reality can change. Bad weather can delay a replenishment. Tasking can keep you out longer than planned. An unexpected emergency can stretch the timeline, so the math has to include cushions. One planning snapshot shows the scale in blunt numbers: about 1,600 pounds of chicken, 350 pounds of lettuce, 160 gallons of milk, and 30 boxes of cereal every day. Even if your exact daily totals vary, the message is the same. You are feeding a small town, and the ocean does not deliver groceries on your schedule. To keep that math from turning into chaos, destroyers use the Food Service Management Program, a digital system for tracking inventory, managing costs, and planning menus. Think of it as the ship's food control room. It lets the supply team see what is on hand, forecast usage, and rotate stock so older items get used first. That rotation is not a small detail. Waste on a ship is not just money in the trash, it is storage space you will never get back until you hit port. The vendor side is a second filter. The Navy works with certified suppliers who meet strict standards for safety, packaging, and delivery timing, and items are inspected before they are accepted. When the destroyer pulls into a foreign port, the supply team can sometimes buy fresh produce locally, but even that runs through Navy guidelines. Done right, it adds real freshness and helps maintain positive relations with host nations, because food purchasing can become a small piece of diplomacy when you return to the same ports and the same vendors know exactly what your ship needs. Then comes the part civilians rarely picture, where all of that food has to live. A destroyer cannot carry a supermarket, so storage becomes a strategy. You start the deployment packed with as much perishable food as possible, because fresh fruit and vegetables do not last forever. As the weeks pass, the ship burns through the freshest items first, and the menu gradually leans harder on frozen, canned, and dried foods. That shift is not a failure of cooking. It is the reality of time, distance, and refrigeration space inside a moving steel machine. And when you need fresh supplies without returning to port, you enter one of the Navy's most demanding evolutions: underway replenishment. A supply ship matches speed and course on a parallel track, with the two vessels operating separated by roughly 150 feet of open ocean. In calm seas, it looks controlled. In moderate seas, it looks like two moving buildings trying not to touch. Rigging systems and heavy-duty cables transfer palletized cargo across the gap, and advanced tension controls compensate for the ship's movement so the load does not whip or slam when the ocean decides to get loud. Cold chain matters here. Frozen and refrigerated provisions have to move fast, protected in containers designed for transfer conditions, then routed into the ship's storage without breaking temperature control. On deck, teams use handling equipment like powered pallet jacks and conveyor systems to move weight quickly, and the sequence is planned so the ship stays stable as thousands of pounds shift from one side to another. Safety governs every step. Crews drill emergency breakaway procedures so the ships can separate quickly if conditions deteriorate, because the ocean does not care that you still have pallets on the line. Once the food is aboard, the galley takes over, and this is where the operation becomes physical. The destroyer's galley is a high-volume kitchen built for a cramped, moving environment. Industrial ovens, steam kettles, and tilt skillets are secured against ship movement so they can be used safely in rough seas. So one machine often does several jobs: soup in the morning, pasta at night, roasted meat one day, baked bread the next. The layout is designed to minimize wasted movement because every extra step inside a tight space becomes friction when you are feeding hundreds on a clock. Ventilation is a quiet hero. In a confined steel compartment, heat and air quality directly affect food preparation and the people doing it. Modern galleys use advanced ventilation systems to keep conditions workable while batches of food are moving through the line. And the sailors running that line are trained for it. The Navy culinary specialists go through intensive preparation that covers food safety, nutrition, equipment maintenance, sanitation rules, and emergency procedures. They are also expected to be flexible because the menu might be planned months in advance, but the day you cook it depends on the ship's schedule, the sea, and what actually came aboard during the last resupply. Now, step into the day. It is still dark, and you are moving through passageways toward the galley while the ship hums under your feet. Early morning crews can begin work around 0400 because breakfast has to hit on time for a ship that runs on watches. While one team is prepping, another is thinking ahead to lunch, and someone is already tracking what got used overnight. Batch cooking is the default, not because anyone loves it, but because it is the only way to keep food hot, safe, and available during service periods without blowing through the ship's limited storage. Meal service follows a schedule that gives shipboard life structure. Breakfast runs about 600 to 800, lunch from 1100 to 1300, and dinner from 1630 to 1830. With flexibility when operations demand it. The watchstanders are the reason midrats exist, midnight rations that keep the overnight crew fed with the same attention to temperature and safety as daytime meals. Heating units and hot holding practices support extended service without turning food into a gamble. Between those scheduled meals is the grind nobody romanticizes, the reset. Culinary specialists get backed up by sailors temporarily assigned to food service for short tours, sometimes 90 days at a time. 1 minute, you are fixing gear or standing watch. The next, you are cranking, hauling trays, wiping surfaces, breaking down serving gear, and running the dish line in waves. That sanitation tempo keeps the next meal safe and keeps outbreaks from spreading at sea for everybody on board. And because the ship's work can be hot, humid, and physically punishing, food service is tied directly to performance. Menus are planned to support long watches, and hydration stations around the ship keep water and electrolyte drinks available in different climates. This is where nutrition stops being a poster and becomes a requirement because a tired crew with low energy makes more mistakes. If you like seeing the real systems behind naval power, hit like and subscribe so you don't miss the next deep dive at sea. Quality is enforced through repetition of process, not repetition of content. Every meal goes through multiple checks, including temperature monitoring at critical control points. Culinary specialists keep detailed logs of preparation times, cooking temperatures, and holding periods, creating a paper trail of compliance. They also collect feedback through surveys and everyday conversations, then adjust menus and service to match what the crew actually eats because the best plan on paper is useless if sailors skip it and hunt for snacks instead. Modern crews also come with modern dietary realities. Food service has to accommodate religious restrictions, medical needs, and lifestyle choices, which means stocking specialized ingredients and preparing alternatives without breaking the flow of the main line. Information about allergens and dietary considerations is displayed so sailors can make informed choices quickly, which matters on a ship where you might have 10 minutes to eat before you are back on station. There is another morale layer that sits above all the numbers. Holidays and special occasions are planned months in advance, so the crew can still feel connected to home. Whole turkeys for Thanksgiving, hams for Christmas. These items have to be ordered early, stored correctly, and cooked in a galley that is still feeding everyone else on schedule. It is work, but it is also a reminder that the Navy understands food is not only fuel, it is comfort when the ocean has been your view for weeks. Even waste is treated like a system. Modern operations push environmental responsibility through waste reduction and smarter packaging, and food waste tracking helps identify where portion control and planning can improve. Some of the newest tools go further, using analytics to predict consumption patterns, suggest menu adjustments, and reduce overordering. Digital inventory systems can track items from ordering to service, improving visibility and preventing shortages. Looking ahead, experimental ideas like hydroponic growing systems and advanced preservation methods aim to stretch freshness longer while reducing storage strain, because the best meal at sea is the one you can still make on day 30 when the easy options are gone. By the end of a deployment, you understand what this really is. It is a daily supply chain, a production line, a sanitation routine, and a morale program running inside a warship that does not get to pause. About 1,200 meals a day becomes a clock the crew lives by, and the people behind that clock, supply officers, culinary specialists, and the sailors supporting them, are keeping the ship ready in the most practical way possible. So the next time you see a destroyer cutting through rough water, remember, there is a kitchen below deck fighting its own battle against time, motion, and distance. What part of shipboard chow surprises you most? The planning, the replenishment, or the nonstop schedule? Tell us in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories about what keeps the fleet running.